Welcome guys to another episode of Seen and Unseen. I am Edgar Eck, and today we cross that line. I believe this is going to be the most complicated episode yet, but bear with me till the end. It is a topic that has touched the lives of 99% of people at some point in their lives, whether Christian or not. It's telekinesis. Now, I know what you're thinking. Edgar, I have never been involved in telekinesis. How can you say 99% of people have been involved in it? That's why I'm making this episode, my friends. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but in the end all will be clear. Now, telekinesis is generally understood as practice when a person can move objects without touching them. It is also similar to psychokinesis, which is ability to have mental influence on physical things or objects. Well, that's that for definitions. Now let's cross that line and uncover what this practice is really about, and why most of us are involved in it. Now, before we dive into deep waters, let me just say that officially, telekinetic powers have never been proven scientifically. Does that mean they are not real? Not necessarily. But I don't want to get into politics or conspiracy theories. Some of the most well-known cases of telekinesis come from two major names in this field: Nina Kulagina and Uri Geller. Nina Kulagina was known for moving matches, cigarettes, and eggs without ever touching them. Numerous Soviet scientists have filmed and investigated her demonstrations. She became so popular even researchers from other countries came to observe her abilities. There were hundreds of pages of reports, laboratory films, and she was even in the CIA files. Her abilities were not scientifically proven. I believe even some professional magicians came to explain that she was moving objects with hidden threads. Same goes for Uri Geller, who was famous in the 1970s with his ability to bend spoons, move objects mentally, and even affecting watches. Even though some early tests were interpreted as real, genuine abilities, later everything was disproven. According to the actual accounts, he was believed to use some sort of illusions and tricks to create those effects. Edgar, why are you telling all this boring history? I hear you. Well, to show you guys that telekinesis was and still is a part of the paranormal investigations. To this day, there are special classes and workshops that anyone can join. Classes like telekinesis training, mind over matter workshops, psychic development courses, spoon bending workshops, psychokinesis training, etc. Well, you get the point. I personally used to know a person who was a part of telekinesis workshop. She would always brag about how she could bend spoons and move tiny sticks, like matches, for example. According to their logic, everyone has a telekinetic ability inside of them. All you need to do is train and develop that ability. Some, according to them, are naturally gifted at developing those quote-unquote powers, and some just need help. Well, enough with the general information. Let's get into the deep waters and let's look at what telekinesis is from exorcistic and demonological perspectives. And most importantly, in the end, I will address the question of why most of us are or have been involved in it. Let's begin with the demonological logic behind telekinesis. If authentic, because let's face it, there are numerous fake cases, just like with exorcisms or possession. So if authentic, it involves a spiritual influence, which gives a person quote-unquote power to move objects and have influence over those objects. The worst part is that it is disguised as a power that humans naturally have. Now let's look at it step by step. First thing, what telekinesis eliminates is the power of God. Remember what's the logic behind the very first temptation in the Bible. Satan clearly showed his cards for the rest of human history. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. That's his trick that he plays every single time. Take any godlessness, any sin, any rebellion against God, and underneath you will find the desire, the satanic, demonic desire to be God. Speaking of Satan himself, that's his nature, that's the reason for his fall, that's the trick he plays in human hearts every single day. Telekinesis, essentially, is a form of becoming like God. Who wouldn't like to have the power over physical objects? Think about it for a second. Of course we all do. That's sinful nature speaking in us. We crave that power to control, influence, manipulate, and have power over something. Wouldn't you like to be able to move objects just by thinking about it? But the problem is not in moving objects at all. It's not about the objects. Moving a cup of coffee across the table or turning off TV without the remote. It's not about that at all. It's about promoting the power of self, the power of the mind. It all began in the 18th century, or in the 1770s to be precise, with the Austrian physician Franz Mesmer. He thought there was an invisible force called animal magnetism flowing through people. According to him, illness came from blocked energy. Special people could manipulate this force, and that the mind could influence the body. His movement was known as mesmerism. And although modern science at the time rejected his theory, Mesmer accidentally inspired hypnosis and many later spiritual movements. Now, during the late 19th century is where the real trouble begins. A man named Phineas Quimby thought that your body is affected by your thoughts. Later, that evolved into such beliefs as thoughts create reality, positive thinking creates the future, and your subconscious controls everything. Does that sound familiar? I believe it does, because in the 1960s and 1980s, everything was mixed into one bag. Eastern religions, Hindu philosophy, occultism, psychology, positive thinking. Now, the power of the mind evolved into visualization, affirmation, manifestation, vibrations, higher consciousness, and universal energy. To put it into one sentence, all of this has led to a belief system about unlocking your divine potential. Now, what does it have to do with telekinesis, and why am I telling you all this? Have you noticed the pattern, guys? Have you noticed the pattern that began in the Garden of Eden, and whose author is none other than Satan himself? He told Eve his mindset, "You shall be like God, knowing good and evil." Telekinesis is all about unlocking the power within you to have control over physical objects. Just like any other demonic occult philosophy, it's about elevating yourself by unlocking your divine potential. See, this is why I said before that telekinesis is not about moving or not moving objects. The problem is way deeper than that. It's contrary to what the Bible teaches. It's about the self. Look at what's trending today. The books, the media, the movies. Which ones are the most popular? Wherever you look, it's about the self. The power of your mind, your thoughts, your quote-unquote energy, all disguised as self-help ideology. It's about becoming the better version of yourself, reaching your potential, unlocking the power of your mind, the divine power that is within you, etc. Most tragic part of all of this is that it is inside the churches as well. This philosophy has now creeped into the Christian circles, and it wears the mask of biblical teaching. It's all about personal stories in churches, where pastors talk about their journey to God more than God himself, where people would rather get into groups to share testimonies about themselves, rather than praise and worship God. Look at how most of the time people pray. Grant me, help me, show me, give me this and that, heal me, etc. It's all about the self. I remember I was once in a church where the pastor's sermon was all about how he overcame alcoholism and how he heard the voice of God, how he began studying theology, and eventually how he created a ministry that helps people with alcohol problems. And then casually in the end, he just added, "All thanks be to God." I always like to talk about the scariest verse in the entire Bible. Literally, there is no verse more frightening than this one. In Matthew 7, when Jesus is speaking about the day of judgment, he says this, "On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name?' And then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you.'" The scariest part is that Jesus is not talking about non-believers, Satanists or murderers. He's talking to Christians. At least, those people who thought themselves to be Christians. But notice something important. Those people did not worship God. They did not glorify him or bow down to him. Instead, they worshiped themselves. Look at the language there. Did we not prophesy? Did we not cast out demons in your name? Did we not do many mighty works? For them, it was never about God. It was all about themselves. Now, I know this is a heavy topic and you're probably thinking, but what is wrong with trying to do better, get better, reach your potential, etc.? Nothing is wrong to achieve your potential, except for one thing. 9 times out of 10, that self becomes more important than God. Just like in telekinesis, people rely on themselves, their thoughts, their prayers, their faith, their power, more than they rely on God. Of course, work on your mind, your spirit, your knowledge, your body. But always remember, it is all about God and His glory. For example, a man can be obsessed with gym for 2 reasons: to look good and attractive, or to use his body and strength to serve God and his family. As you can see, the problem is not the gym or getting in shape. The problem is that most oftenly, it is all about our self. You can hear professional athletes say this all the time. You have to believe in yourself. Just trust yourself, etc. Self, self, self. I thought you are supposed to believe and trust God only. The most demonic logic that you will be able to find is not the murder, lies, cheating, or drunkenness. It's the idea that you can be your own God, controlling objects like in telekinesis, controlling reality with your thoughts, and controlling life with your mind. What it does subconsciously, it slowly, quietly eliminates the need and the very idea of God. As I always like to say, demons do not need to possess you, to have you belong to them. And this is exactly what's happening to all those who are falling into the trap of being your own God, into the trap of unlocking the power within. Now, my friends, with this podcast, I am only touching the tip of the iceberg. If you're serious about moving past the surface level and understanding the actual mechanics of exorcism, spiritual warfare, and the true legal boundaries of the unseen realm, the doors to my seen and unseen community are open. Inside, you can find real, verified field case studies from my 15 years of research, access step-by-step training modules, and get direct, raw answers from me personally. The link is right down in the description below. In our next episode, I will be addressing the topic I personally am fascinated with. It's titled, You Cannot Buy God. As for now, I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and we have crossed the line. Keep your eyes open. This was Seen and Unseen, and I will see you in the next episode.